Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit podcast. On today's episode, we are taking that deep dive once again into the pool, into the deep end of athlete IQ. What does it mean? How do you develop it? How should you think about it if you're a coach? What does that coach-athlete relationship look like when we're trying to develop athlete IQ? Before that, some housekeeping. Wow, this is weird. There's like an echo in this room. It's fucking with me a little bit.
Yeah, you can hear it a tiny bit.
All right.
Literal housekeeping.
Oh yeah.
For you.
We'll explain what's going on here, people. Let's see. I'm gonna click echo cancellation. This cannot be changed while recording. Beautiful. All right. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by, and honestly, my drive across the country is brought to you by Gorilla Mind energy drink. My favorite product from them, or at least currently at the moment, after allowing myself to have one per day. I could have gotten a little squirrely if I had two per day. One per day on the drive. So noticed we have like a portal for our sponsorship, and I noticed a bunch of orders, with our code coming in last week. First and foremost, that's one way for you guys to support us and support the podcast. So that's really cool. But secondly, I want to know what you guys think of the products, especially if anybody bought the Intra. I still haven't ordered that. I got to order that. It's got carbs, sodium, and creatine. And it's Black Friday sale right now, and everything in the store is either 20, 30, or 40% off. And if you use the code word Misfit, you get an additional 10% off. So we kind of have like this perfect trial period for you guys to try this thing out and let me know what you think of their products. But I'm a huge fan. Told a way too long story about getting the sponsorship last week on the podcast, but go check everything out. I definitely recommend the energy drink if you are, I would say, podcast type thing, like anything where you really need to be able to focus mentally, but then also really big for I found it awesome for longer bike rides, like just kind of staying locked in mentally on aerobic type work. So gorillamind.com/misfit. Or just go to Gorilla Mind and use the code that you're going to save 10% and you're going to get 20, 30, or 40% off, I think through maybe Monday next week. Housekeeping, the next episode of this podcast is going to be for the Winjiru, I should look up the pronunciation before that podcast, Misfit affiliate phase. So Hunter and I will go into everything there, and it's perfect timing to jump in on the free trial to be able to see the beginning of all that and sort of get an understanding for your affiliate what everything looks like, how we deliver information, what the documents look like. I personally would never recommend someone Sunday night of Winjiru logging in and doing that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why we keep the 2-week free trial year round, because even if you wanted to start in 2 weeks, I really like someone familiarizing this with themselves, emailing me, talking to us in Telegram, all that good stuff. So teammisfit.com, click on the sign up now button, you get 2 weeks for free.
And that month, the entire month of December is, one, it's available if you're a subscriber, but two, if you're thinking about it, it's always a lot easier for you, your coaching staff, your members to have an idea of what that looks like before you start. It's like the 8th is day one, but that's probably not the day to switch over unless you've already taken a look at it.
That's worthy of a coach's meeting for sure, sitting down and going over stuff and asking your questions and all that good stuff. And if you would like to see the PDF version instead of being on SugarWOD, StreamFit, or Push Press, just shoot me an email, coach@misfitathletics.com. I'll get you a 2-week sample. We're in the throes of phase 2, seeing some really good notes from the athletes in Telegram already, which is awesome. Link in bio to sign up on Fitter or Strivey. Yeah, live chat. So if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening and you hear an echo, I'll fix that, don't worry. I am in Colorado. If you missed last week's episode, I moved to Grand Junction, Colorado, drove across the country, survived on Gorilla Mind energy drinks, meat sticks, and cheese sticks. There might have been a chip or two, but
fucking Hank must have been stoked about the diet.
Let's talk about Hank on the trip. He would not eat. He would not eat any of his dinner. He had plenty of meat and cheese, don't worry.
He's just full.
And he did not pee for 48 hours. He was so scared every time I got him out of the car that I was going to leave him that he did not pee for 2 days.
Don't say that.
And then he pissed
Doesn't even make sense,
over the
Hank.
bed at the Holiday Inn Express.
As God
I was
intended.
like, why is he moving around so much? And then I was like,
a large pool of piss.
What is that? So he peed all over his bed. Maybe he peed. Did he pee at the? No, it was the La Quinta that he peed all over the bed. That's a good boy. Listen, they charge
the same La Quinta that we fucking stayed at in in
I
Philly?
don't
Was it?
think, no, where was I? North Platte, Nebraska, so I'm guessing.
Yeah, you were.
Yeah, not a lot of people were there or have been to North Platte, Nebraska. That was part of how I had to figure out the drive is, I will say though,
Where you were
the
stopping?
voice function for ChatGPT, literally on the highway, click the button. I'm at mile marker 480. I'm probably going to drive for another hour or two. Can you find me a pet-friendly hotel that's right off of I-80? And within 5 seconds, listed out the towns, what
Chat
hotels it
GPT did
was.
that?
Yeah, like voice too.
Wow. Yeah,
I was
wow.
very impressed.
That's super
Because
impressive.
there's, like, my parents use something, I don't even know, Bring Fido something. They use some kind of app that tells you about that stuff. But luckily, there's a lot more hotels now that are friendly with that stuff. So I don't think any of the trillions of dollars we've spent on infrastructure has made it to Ohio in the last 30 years. That highway is terrifying. It's like
This is the 80?
concrete. This is either 90 or 80. They kind of blend together a little bit. But you're driving across Ohio, and the two outside lanes are concrete, basically, with like, you can see like grass growing out of the cracks. And then the middle is old asphalt. And like while you're driving, you're positive your tire is going to explode. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it's almost the whole state. When you cross in, it starts. And when you get into, I think it's Indiana, it's like perfect. This is like, what is
that's
happening?
the
How is it
Ohio.
possible?
Yeah, that's the Ohio I had in my head when I was like Masters CrossFit Games, Columbus, Ohio.
I was in that
but
Ohio.
yeah, no. See, Columbus is a atrocious representation of Ohio in like the opposite good way.
Exactly.
It's like,
Yeah.
this is phenomenal.
I always thought it was cool driving through Cleveland because like you're on the lake and there's like the baseball stadium. You basically feel like you're driving through a city. Yeah, Ohio, you got some problems. And then Nebraska, the speed limit goes up to 75 and people drive side by side at like 65. Dude, I didn't like, it's not like as bad as my road rage as a teenager, but it was, I would drive by slowly and just be like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Where are you going right now? And then I crossed over into Colorado and it was like, I'm doing 90 and I'm getting passed by people. And I'm like, yes, I'm home.
I'm home. Let's go. That's great.
I got so lucky too. Mountain pass, basically no traffic, no weather. So
Nice. That's good.
I just cruised right through. And then, story of the week. Yesterday, I get washer and dryer delivered from the Geek Squad from Best Buy.
The literal
And
Geek Squad.
The Geek Squad. Big truck that just says Geek Squad on the side. And Hank would not approve security clearance for the two gentlemen.
Understood.
So, yeah. So I closed the door to the laundry room and created a barricade with a bunch of chairs. Because if you don't, he'll crawl. He'll make his way through the chairs. You got to really...
He's tactical.
Nice. So I'm working on my computer and I hear one of them start screaming. And not like, ouch, something's wrong, but like something is very, very wrong. And then I hear, sir. So I'm like, oh, they're clearly talking to me. And then I think...
They're like clearly talking to Hank, got it?
Yeah, the guy, yeah, for real. Can we please stay here without you barking? And I'm trying to climb over the chairs, like, with a little
The barricade
speed,
you
which makes
just
it worse.
created. Yeah.
Slow as smooth as fast was not happening. And he's like, Jay, oh my God, Jay, are you okay? What's happening? And I'm like, oh my God. So I open the door.
Holy shit.
Gentleman is having a full-blown seizure, like one that I've never seen before. Whole body convulsions, stuff coming out of his mouth. Like, it was crazy.
Wow, fuck.
So I called 911 and I'm on the phone with them for probably 10, 12 minutes while this, like, he probably had a seizure for like 3 minutes and then was asleep.
All right.
Like, head just down. And his friend was like trying to talk to him and they were asking me about his breathing and all that stuff. And then they came and got him, but the ambulance took him to the hospital. But like, dude.
God damn.
And it's funny too, because like, the neighbors were texting my landlord already, like, whose Jeep is in the driveway? And then they were texting, like, is he okay? Like, there are fire trucks and ambulance at the house.
Yeah, fucking new guy here, bringing in all kinds of trouble.
Ruckus. So that was a crazy way to start my first full day.
Gonna have to bring some gorilla mind over to the neighbors as a peace offering.
Dude, it was crazy. And it's funny too, because there's a lot of like older people. So like, even though it was Monday, they were home and they were doing the thing where like they were pretending to walk their dogs or like take out the trash and kind of peeking
Yeah,
over, seeing
yeah.
what's going on. Yeah.
Is he all right?
As
I mean, I
far as
guess
I
I
know,
doubt you got
like
updates from the Geek Squad, but
he was coherent when they took him. He was still very
okay.
confused.
Yeah.
I honestly have some experience with this with dogs, and it seems to be kind of similar. Like Hank's got epilepsy. Yeah, dude.
Wow. What a fucking trip. I totally thought you were going to be like Hanky fucking turning one of them into a chew toy. Yeah, just fucking.
Right. Yeah.
That sucks. That's bad.
Yeah, it was an experience.
Yeah.
Sure. What you got? You gonna top that?
No, I definitely not. The sauna broke, so that was like just kind of standard. Yep. So my problem for sure.
Small business ownership, just rites of passage, just
Yeah. I was like, honestly, like if that's the thing for right now, like I can tolerate that. I'll probably need to knock on wood that something else doesn't explode in the next like
Every
3
time
days.
something happens, though, you get more desensitized to it. You realize that you just have to find a solution. Because, like, I remember being young and things happen, baby. Just
Yep. So that's the small business owner update. Sauna broke with 2 members in it, which was nice. Nick, Christina, I'm sorry. But yeah, man, not a whole lot. Golf season's winding down. I will give the people what they certainly want and ask for, which is the end of year synopsis with some stats. Give that to them next year or next week. I mean, but
okay.
Yeah, no, it still sucks over here. You're not missing much. It's fall.
Going to be. Let me pull this up.
Yeah. What's the?
This is funny. This is really funny. Although it looks
high. What's the high low?
Oh, come on! It went away. It's gone. There was a cold front coming through, and it was going to be a low of 12 and 13 and a high of like 25. But it's not in the app anymore. So I guess it's not coming through.
Yep. Otherwise, I'll take the trek down to New York City tomorrow, so I'll get my cross country equivalent.
Yep.
Maine to New York, basically cross country, but leaving earlier this year than last year, which is good. So, God willing, we'll arrive.
I went to the airport to pick up my Carter and my sister last night, and getting on the highway was like, oh, this is weird. We're back.
Yeah.
Hank by my side, like, here we go again. And then it was like 3 minutes on the highway, and it was nice to get off.
Nice. So they made it fine, obviously.
Yep, they made it fine.
The
reports were that he sang Old MacDonald for the whole flight from Denver to Junction, which is like 45 minutes.
Okay.
And he was getting delirious, so it just shortened to Old MacDonald Had a Farm, just looped. And he was looking squirrely when I picked him up last night. He was saying some stuff to me like he was out of it. He was completely out of it. It's just like 10:30 or so East Coast time and no nap. So, yeah.
Big boy time.
Yep, but he survived, and probably more importantly, his mom survived, so all is well.
Nice. No need to, neither of you guys are nothing back here? Like everything has been in a truck somewhere between Maine and Colorado?
I'll save that story for next week.
Okay.
I don't have it in me to get mad about that right now, so.
I understand.
Here's what I'll say. I don't have any of my lights. I don't have my microphone. I do have this one, so hopefully it sounds decent. My tripod is in a sink behind me.
Okay.
We're making it work for now.
Okay.
But I would like to have my stuff. That would be cool.
Okay. When you bumped your camera, you got a little bit blurry. FYI, you were clear a split second ago.
He's back. All right.
There you go.
Let's share the screen here.
Enhanced your microphone too.
Share.
Could bob and weave.
Screen.
Hey.
All right. Here we go. So we have the athlete IQ triangle up on the screen right now. And it's funny because we've talked about what goes on top, what goes on bottom, whether the point is at the top or the bottom, what order it goes in, all that good stuff. Luckily, I have some handy dandy arrows here that point in both directions, because a lot of this is about what you need to work on, what you need to improve on, and then you just continue around the circle back and forth. So the 3 points of the triangle are mind, body, and experience. And then we have some subheaders that we'll get into related to each one of those things. But I want to start by, I don't know if definition is necessary, but like what is currently in your head about an explanation of what this is at a macro level. And then we can decide kind of where to start. So what comes to mind for you as a coach, for an athlete, for a coach, wherever you want to take it, when we say athlete IQ?
When we say athlete IQ or this specific thing, I guess I'll answer both. I think the athlete IQ is essentially like, I don't think I'm going to blow anybody's brain out the back of their skull with this, but essentially the consolidation of everything that you know about yourself and your capabilities and how you can apply it to training or competition. From a coach perspective, I being not like the most uniquely creative person, I see this as like the theoretical development of the hierarchy of an athlete type thing from like a competitive side, right? So in CrossFit, like nutrition being the foundation and up the ladder for this like could very much break down into like the development of a competitive athlete, right? The hierarchy maybe reorganized a little bit, but the combination of the mind-body experience obviously creates that, like, I guess, the athlete IQ brain.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah.
When I think about it from
yours?
An athlete perspective, I've just dealt with this a lot, and again, very recently. If you don't want to have a deep understanding of how all of this works, you're not going to be as successful as someone that is as fit as you and as skilled as you and as strong as you that does. And it's almost like we have mind-body experience, we have all of this stuff, and what I'm talking about does fit into one. But if we rise all the way above it and just look at the wording of athlete IQ, it's like that student of the game concept. And that applies to athletes and coaches, right? Like as a coach, you're always taking in those new experiences, you're maturing as a human being and trying to potentially pass on some lessons to another person. I believe that you need to have some skin in the game when it comes to body, right? Like you got to know what's going on out on the floor. Like you need to be the kind of coach that does go out and like rip on an echo bike randomly while they're programming, like for X amount of calories, to be like, all right, it's this one or it's this one. When you're on the fence, you're practicing the accessory work that you're programming just enough in it, and knowing how skill development works on a personal level, what recovery protocols actually move the needle, whether it's we're at the affiliate level and it's just teaching like, hey guys, we really need to be good about sleep. We're going to pay close attention to the way that we eat. We're not going to watch, we're not going to have the phone in our face when we're in bed, things like that. And then GPP is almost like, it's not unexplainable. It makes perfect sense to me that you would be stronger if you were fitter and you'd be fitter if you were stronger. You know what I mean? Like it makes sense. But the alchemy of GPP, this magical thing that we've kind of found in the CrossFit space that I don't think anyone has found before. You have to experience it, in my estimation, to like really believe in it. So again, just going through and developing your fitness level, developing your strength, working on a skill, and it doesn't matter what the skill is. Like, if we dumbed it down to, you and Kyle working on your golf swing, you're understanding the component parts of how to break something down. You're understanding, you guys film yourselves or, have a coach watch you. Like, it doesn't matter what the skill is. It doesn't matter what the strength movement is. It doesn't matter what, like, if you're into, sprints or I love a cube test or I like to do zone 2 work, but just understanding that stuff on a personal level, I think is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I think what you said at the beginning, the smarter athlete is going to be the, likely the more successful, at least in the long run. There's certainly a place for turning off your brain and just letting it rip, but to me, like the smartest athlete has the ability to do that, right? We've seen athletes who are maybe too smart for their own good in such a way that it's detrimental. They either know, for example, maybe how badly something's going to hurt, and they can therefore like calibrate themselves to not reach that place, or they're just overthinking so much. To take your golf swing analogy, right? It's the equivalent of me, hey, in the gym or in a simulator working on a very, very specific skill, but then going out on the course and trying to think about that exact same thing every single swing I make while I'm also trying to score well. It's the equivalent of, you're out on the competition floor, it's a 1 rep max snatch, and it's just like, okay, as long as I keep my weight balanced over my forefoot, and then I pull and I sweep the bar into my hip, and I've got the weight in my heels, and I keep the heels down, but I also need to extend upward. It's like, why you like it's too much, right? And in that instance, it's like that detracts from your ability as an athlete. So just kind of remembering that like the mind body experience elements kind of come together to create like the literal term, like into your athlete intelligence quotient. Like, are you actually thinking about these things? Are you applying them? Are you trying to learn? And like you kind of alluded to in the example you gave with skill, it's like it doesn't necessarily matter as much like, hey, are we driving home this one, working like our ass off on this one very specific skill for a long period of time? Are we broadly applying this kind of skill-based mindset to lots of things every time we go out there in training? That's less relevant than the fact that as an athlete who's trying to get better, you're actually thinking about these things when it's time to think about them, like in training, like in skill sessions. And then you also know when it's time to turn that off and say like, okay, here we're no longer training, we are testing, we're competing, whatever. It's like it's the by any means necessary approach where there's a little bit less, let's say, and a little bit less IQ and a little bit more athlete.
Yeah, for sure. And the way that I explain bridging that gap to athletes who struggle with it is you need to be able to coach yourself in low stakes environments. And low stakes could be we're as far away from the season starting as possible. Low stakes could be warm up, cool down, recovery, a zone 2 session. So intensity could be a little bit lower. And that's when you can start to add on. You don't, the linear progression of building yourself up as a student of the game should start from a very simple place, because then you can create that bridge in their mind of, hey, you already know all of this stuff. All I'm asking you to do is to start to add to it, and we'll do it slowly, and we'll do it through remote coaching notes and things of that nature. But if you're not open-minded about it, if you're not open to the idea, if it's, I just prefer a coach to tell me what to do every second, then again, it's just doable, but it's not going to be as good as someone, again, who's in the same position as you that thinks about it in a different way.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I'll let you do the honors here. Where does this start, or where would you like to start? Because it doesn't really start anywhere.
It doesn't start anywhere. I was thinking about that. I figured that question would come up. Like, I'll think about it from the CrossFit pyramid sort of thing. So it's an actual pyramid. And at the base, in my experience, in my mind, is the mind element. It's like you can have like a tremendous level of experience. You can be extremely fit from a numbers perspective, but like at the foundation, if your brain isn't in it, whether it's, hey, I have all the tools, but I'm not interested in competing. I have all the tools and a lot of experience, but I tend to get in my own way. I'm too smart for my own good. I'm not smart. I'm too much of an athlete for my own good. I think like the experience and the physical capabilities, like the only way that those line up and come together is if your brain can kind of pull them together. So if I were to, if I'm in charge of this design, I might put it at the base. How you put the base as the flat side, like you can't. It's a point. So yeah, you can't do it. But
I should turn it even more so that it's like like a 45.
Yeah, and I think probably both of us would rather work with, given the choice between an athlete who has like a real desire to get better and learn, but has a low, they snatch 95 pounds, they don't have ring muscle ups yet. That might be an extreme example, but this person really wants to get better and they're willing to do what it takes, and they have that kind of like the right mindset, so to speak. That athlete is in the long run going to be far more successful than the, hey, I've been to the CrossFit Games 3 times. Like, there's obviously an element of experience and like physical capability, but yeah, like I'll listen to you sometimes, but like I think I know what's best here. It's like, yeah, I know you're trying to teach me how to climb rope, but like my way I think is a little bit better. So it's like, okay, like congratulate. I can only do so much for that athlete. And they're also just that's not particularly fun to work with as a coach, right? It's like, what the fuck am I doing here? If you know so much, like why are you paying a coach? So I think just like as an athlete, like you have to understand that too. And I have to imagine a lot of coaches are like that, but I'm sure there are some who would happily work with like somebody who's low who's just like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. And you can call me your coach, and that's good for me and good for you and whatever.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
That's a
like,
young man's game, what you're describing there. And honestly, what's complicated about my job, and not just my job as a coach, but my job as a business owner, because like the reason I get so pumped about going on to like Telegram is because there's this group of like a dozen or so athletes that are super active in there, and you can just see the athlete IQ, you can see the buy-in, you can see the buy-in to the community, and like those are the athletes that I like feel proud, like if they go to a competition they're wearing a Misfit t-shirt. I am much more
regardless
drawn,
of where they finish, right?
yes, I'm drawn to those people and want to help those people significantly more than a very high level athlete where we don't have, and honestly, I can put it in the perspective of just listen to the rest of the episode. Like if you're not on board for this, and my patience for that gets lower and lower and lower as I go on. And it's just like, hey, I work with top 10 CrossFit Games athletes, and I help people on the GPP program and everywhere in between. And the common denominator of whether I'm like bought in to helping you, whether you're giving us $20 a month or, $400 a month for remote coaching, is, your attitude and your coachability and things of that nature. Like that's what I'm drawn to, and that's what I get excited about. So gone are the days of like some rando walking into the gym and like doing a muscle up and being like, oh my God, amazing. It's like, I don't fucking care. Oops.
Yep.
I did a Command F last week, and we went from 1 F word to 18.
That really makes me wonder what the count was like 3 weeks ago before we. Yeah, can I?
I'm gonna do a chart.
We should do that next week. I'm gonna give everybody my golf stats for the year, and you can give everybody the fucking clucking the swear stats for
notes.
Yeah. That's a great distraction. Like, hey, I have too many things to do over the next week. Let me do this.
Count all of the times we
count
swore.
All of the swears in the last podcast and average them out.
All right.
You could Command F that and then just toss all those stats into Chat GPT. Get them to do a nice quick regression analysis. We peak on F words when the
I would like to see if it's like a correlation between like winter sucks or like it's during the open, or like what time of year does it
It's a phase podcast. It's a that would be
all right.
Yeah, figure it out.
I'm gonna put you on the spot again, but only because you coined one of my favorite terms and concepts. We actually talked about it recently. One of our podcasts that we did. So the subheadings for Mind are maturity, patience, expectations, dedication, and life. And when we talked about maturity, you talked about it as just a thing and a concept that didn't really cross my mind. And now it's the only thing that comes to mind, really, when I think about maturity. And that's the idea of the maturity meter. I don't know how much of it that you remember. If you want like a little overview.
If you have the brief overview, you could jog the memory, and I can run my mouth on it for a second. I do remember it, but it's been a minute.
You basically just said that maturity is actually a bunch of small decisions that get added together, and when you start making decisions that are going to positively influence you, kind of that tiny habits concept, the maturity meter keeps going up as you add those things. So it's not this massive thing like, I used to be an impulsive teenager, and now all of a sudden I need to snap my fingers and be stoic. It was like, as an athlete specifically, and honestly, I think in life, stacking these little things, this linear progression mindset, and then all of a sudden you become more mature.
Yeah, no, I think it's I was thinking like the tiny habits, and I think it's like it's the same idea as the concept that you might have with like in my world for the affiliate athlete, where it's like, hey, I want to improve my health, my fitness. I actually had this might be a good example, is that I had a member text me and basically was saying like, hey, my doctor's letting me know that I have a couple of blood markers that are elevated, out of whack, and it's actually like, this is the time that it's making me nervous. It's like, fuck, I need to do this. The follow-up question to that was pretty interesting. It was, would I be better off doing one additional zone 2 day per week, or one weightlifting day. It's like, so I'm lacking this area. My health markers are not well. What's more beneficial, zone 2 or weightlifting? And I'm like,
They're asking the wrong question.
It's the wrong question
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's the wrong question. And it, like, when you have those conversations, it becomes like, hey, we're just going to start to move one thing from the bad bucket to the good bucket. It's like, can we track, like, and you can break it down as far as you need to in order to make this seem like we're moving things in the right direction. It's like, can you track your food for a day? Can you eat one meal that has protein? And this goes to the, like, hey, you're always only one meal away from getting your diet right back on track, right? You're only one training session away from getting back into the routine of working out. And it becomes all of these little small decisions that ultimately, like, what we're saying is like, these seemingly small decisions will eventually add up and kind of get me to where I want to go. And just kind of by nature, that demonstrates a level of maturity in which, like, okay, I have this broader goal. There's a whole shitload of things that I can and should do in order to move the needle in that direction, but understand that you can't do all of them at once. And, like, that's just also, like, you're probably setting yourself up for failure if you're trying to do too many things at once. You just need to start, get the snowball, get the momentum going, get a little snowball that starts rolling downhill, and all of a sudden it becomes really, really easy to pick up additional good habits along the way. And oh, by the way, like, with the more habits, it's an exponential curve, right? It's like these small little things don't seem to be making a difference for a little while until you hit that kind of inflection point where it's like, shit, like, actually, now I'm starting to see all of this kind of come together. I just needed to trust this process a little bit. And that in and of itself is a level of maturity, right? Kind of the faith that what I do right now will eventually result in the or will eventually create the result that I'm after. But I have to have some faith that just because it doesn't show itself right here, right now, that doesn't mean it's not working. And for people trying to find that example in their life, it's like, how many times have you had a great training phase where your snatching or your clean or your back squat felt really good, and 1 rep max test day comes and it's like, I tied my old PR, I was 10 pounds under, like, what happened? And as the coach, that's where it's like, hey man, just like, it's not like just because you didn't PR on that one day that the entire 9 weeks before that were a waste, right? It's like, that's ridiculous. You would never say that, like, to somebody else. Just because the result didn't kind of, like, come out on the day that you wanted it to, doesn't mean that all of that was for naught. And it's obviously a little bit different when it's competition, but we're also much more deliberate about peaking for and being ready to perform optimally in competition. Whereas, a retest day in a training phase is like, yeah, man, maybe you're just still beat to shit from Saturday last week. Test day was on Monday. Just because it's a new week doesn't mean your body forgot about what you did on Saturday. So, like, let's not get too wrapped around the axle here. But yeah, I think it comes down to that kind of habit stacking and just a bit of a kind of relinquishing of concern for, like, hey, I just need to make these small little incremental changes. Eventually, I will see the fruits of my labor pay off. Where it becomes difficult is like, well, when is that? And I don't have the answer for you, and nobody does. And I think that's a lot of times where athletes, if that's the only unknown, right? We tend, as just humans in general, like, unknowns can be scary. And the idea that I've worked really hard and I still haven't seen the fruits of my labor come to fruition it's like, that can be challenging. And that's where having a coach can be super beneficial as well.
Yeah, I think the connection, the bridge from maturity to patience is the all or nothing mindset that people have, myself included. Your
Same.
January 1st gang, you're like, okay, a new phase starts, I'm finally going to, and then you have this list that's 12 pages long of the new habits that you're going to have because it's phase 2. You're finally going to warm up, finally going to cool down, you're going to do your pliability session, you're going to sleep for 47 hours. Not sustainable, doesn't build patterns, for habits. That's been proven, on a scientific level, research level. And what we're talking about seems so small but it's, again, the bridge to patience. We're not going to be able to do all of it at once on a physical level either. So understanding that whatever additional things you need to add to become more mature as an athlete are going to take time for them to hold. And the linear progression model just kind of works for basically everything. And when it comes to patience, there is a massive element of physics, physiology, biology. At our last camp, I gave the talk about the natural order of things. You can't skip ahead. It's not possible unless you have ridiculous genetics, which honestly isn't even skipping ahead, or you're cheating. You just can't make things happen in a period of time just because you want them to happen. I take on a remote coaching client, and almost every person that I take on wants to go to the CrossFit Games. And most of them are 2 to 5 years away from that happening. And if they're on the 4 or 5 year kind of plan, it's a long shot. But like, I've been through situations where someone who really did not think that they could qualify for the games qualified, or didn't think they could qualify for regional semifinals did, or whatever level. So I try not to, unless it's like literally the most obvious thing ever. Like if somebody applied for remote coaching and they were 70 and they told me they wanted to win the Indy Games, we might have to have a tough conversation.
Yeah.
But that, going back to like who I want to coach and who I like working with and who I like helping, like that patience element is everything. Like, you have to trust the process. You have to buy into it, or you're going to have a really bad time. And we'll talk about expectations next, but they're going to be wrong. They're not going to make any damn sense.
Yeah. I mean, even if you have, like, you can have a certain level of expectations, but again, the bridge, like you said, between like maturity is kind of the recognition that this is going to take time and patience, and then like patience being kind of the actual execution portion of that, right? It's like you can have the maturity of saying like it's honest, and even honestly, like for an athlete, it's, you can convince an athlete pretty quickly that like, hey, you're not going to the games this year, but you could next year or the year after if we work really hard. And it's like, yeah, okay, I can, like, I'm mature enough to understand that I'm not going to get there maybe at the end of this year. The question then becomes like, so we have an expectation, and you've kind of like on the other end of that, you've decided like, yeah, I understand that this is going to take time. The distance between the two, right, is the patience element. And the problem is that that distance is always changing, and it is not guaranteed. Like, there's no guarantee that you qualify for the CrossFit Games next year, the year after, or ever.
You don't have control over it.
And
the amount of circumstances that
exactly,
come
for
into
sure.
play. Yeah. And here's what's important. Once again, we'll keep saying it. We're making omelets here, people. We're breaking eggs. Like, you will get to a point where your central nervous system is taxed, and you're going to become delirious, and you're going to be upset that you didn't have a 50-pound PR on the lift. You will lack patience in a micro environment. And then, that's when I give an athlete like, hey, why don't you go take a nap? Or it'd be cool if you went to bed tonight, and then the next day they're fine. Or like, if it's really bothering them, then it's okay, let's do that meeting where we do the like full zoom out and take a look at things. So
yeah,
we aren't saying to everybody that's listening, hey, here are all the things that you need to be, and you better be them right now, and you better be them every day and in every training session and all of that stuff.
I think one way that you can wrap that up, and like this kind of ties into more like expectations, but like, I'll have every once in a while, like at the whiteboard, it's a fucking gnarly workout ahead of the class. People are nervous about it. People, maybe they like it got circled when StreamFit revealed the workout. They're like, oh, fuck, you guys see Wednesday's workout, whatever it is. You stand at the front of the whiteboard, say to the members like, hey guys, this is going to suck. Like, this is going to be hard. You preface that with like, yep, there's nothing hidden here. Like, you already knew. Like, I could see the anxiety. I could see some nerves. I can see people like kind of, like, what's coach going to say? And in a lot of ways, like leading off with like the elephant in the room, like, hey, this is going to be hard. And then people, it's almost like, okay, like, well, if I know it's going to be hard, well, I can plan for that, right? If it's an unknown of like, I think this is going to suck, I don't know where it's going to suck. Coach says, hey, this is going to suck. The middle portion of the workout is going to take a really long time. You're not going to like it, but you can get through it, and we can, let's scale accordingly to make sure this is appropriate. And all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, I can do something hard because I know it's going to be hard. It's the unknown element and that expectation of like, again, it comes down to the unknown. But if it's prefaced by like, hey, I need you to understand something. If you work really hard, we have some patience and maturity, we work on these couple things, I think that with time, you could be a CrossFit Games athlete, but it's going to take a shitload of work. It's going to be really difficult. And if you're on board, I am, it's like, okay, it's all out on the table. And now it becomes just a yes or no. Like, yep, I do think that I want to give it a shot, or like, maybe this isn't for me. But the fact that it's out there and it's like, it's spoken, it's no longer in your head. It's been spoken as gospel. It's like, okay, great. We can step forward from there.
That concept is like, deserves to be screamed from the mountaintops weekly, like understanding, accepting what's going to happen. And one of my favorite instances is working with an athlete and being at a competition, and they have a long couplet or triplet, kind of classic MGW, with running in it. And every round you get back to the running, and you're going to run faster in that context than you ever have in your life. But because running has less localized muscle fatigue, and it's got that effort element to it. I feel the same way about the ski erg. I know a lot of people say that they're like triceps burnout or whatever, but like when I'm running or skiing, you have those moments where you're kind of battling with yourself. Whereas other machines, for me, often I'm just like, dude, I could try as hard as I wanted to right now, and it's not going to matter, to push. So that idea of like, you're going to be at like RPE 7 in round 1, and we got 5 rounds. And every time you go run, you got to run as fast or faster and accept that it's going to hurt a little bit more. Every single time you go run, and you thought that you knew what your gears were and your RPE was, and then somehow you're at an 11 on a scale of 10. So we've reordered, we've understood that there's a different place that you can go. But it's one of my favorite things to have that conversation of. It's like every round when you start running, it's like, all right, I'm off the rope climbs and back squats or whatever, and I'm just kind of, I'm ready to go again. Once you get back, into your pace, like stay there and swim around in the fact that it's going to hurt really bad. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to feel.
And you can then you can start to strategize around that. Once the understanding is there, it's like, okay, so how do we get around that? Well, you give yourself the first 50 to 100 meters to feel sad for yourself, and then like you have to get going. And again, it's just a conversation of like, hey, like based on our goal, our expectation for this phase, this specific event, this is what has to happen. If you execute what has to happen, this will suck. This will be hard, but I know you can do it. Let's have an appropriate strategy. We've got our, gears matrix, so we know how fast you're supposed to be running. You just need to understand that it's going to be difficult, but it is executable, and if you execute it, it will result in the best possible case scenario for the specific event, phase, whatever it happens to be. But a lot of times it's just getting the elephant in the room out there, and then like, let's figure out how to make this thing actually work.
I'm going to set the spectrum for expectations at one side is that person who has a very reachable goal that puts it out like 7 years. Like, I'm going to qualify for quarterfinals in 2029. And it's like, okay, well, maybe we'll speed that timeline up a little bit. And then we have the fully delusional, I'm going to win the CrossFit Games and I haven't made it to semifinals yet. Like that kind of thing. Obviously, we don't want to live in either one of those places. And our expectations need to reflect different periods of time and where we're currently at. Like, I really like an athlete that has that longer term big goal, but is like, okay, last year I was 25th at semifinals. This year I want to be sniffing around that top with those top athletes. So you have those expectations that are like needs. If you want the flow state, if you want to believe in what you're doing, it needs to be out of reach. It needs to feel a little scary. It can't be safe, because then I don't think you're going to demand as much of yourself. You're going to kind of slot closer to that person that's pushing it off a little bit too much. But expectations are extremely important. Again, micro, macro. So what are my expectations of this piece I'm doing today, or this lift I'm about to do? Or like, what is my sort of long-term goal? And something that will come up here in a couple of bullet points that's important is who is allowed to tell you what the expectations are. And the answer literally is just you and people that you've decided are allowed in that bubble, and no one else, right? It's not the barbell spin. It's not, Hiller. It's not any of these people. It's not your fucking annoying, it could be a parent, could be a brother or sister, could be whoever. That's just like, oh, you came in third. Like, it's like, I'm the third fittest person. What? Like, there's like that level, that portion, understanding where your expectations come from is also massively.
Yeah, I think like, again, that's a conversation that you have to have with kind of a coach, like obvious, but the broader kind of archetype is an unbiased third party, right? It's somebody who can like sanity check it and make sure that it's like it's both realistic and it's like it's not on one kind of extreme or the other, because the goal is like it's very similar to how you might train in order to get better, right? It's not okay, I'm an affiliate athlete, want to go to semifinals, therefore I'm going to I'm going to do semifinals workouts. That's right. That's not how it works. Like we don't do that. Having somebody who's there to like audit kind of what those expectations are and establish like, hey, is this actually realistic? Because all expectations are kind of like it's a goal without, I don't know, without like additional thought to it, I guess is how I kind of think about that. But having those expectations and then the additional step of like having somebody who's able to say like, okay, I don't know how you might differentiate a goal versus an expectation, but might be a good question just generally. Like,
I'm annoyed by semantics. That's another thing that annoys me as I get later on in life. Sometimes we get like, that's why I joked about the order of this. Like, we actually probably rewind 8 years and we might have argued over it.
Probably.
Yeah. Which is good because then obviously you're drumming up other ideas and everything like that. But at the end of the day, some part of us knows that like it's where you need to start. It could be any of these places because they're a bridge to another one, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that stuff, like when people argue whether an audiobook is reading, it's like if I spent my time arguing about something like that, I might perish. Like I can't.
Sure.
I can't want it.
Yeah, the like the expectations or goal, and then that obviously ties into the dedication element. But it's like, hey, part of the expectation is establishing. Okay, so let's say that the expectation is it's not completely ridiculous. It's within the realm of possibility. It then comes down to the conversation of like, well, so here are the things that you need to be willing to sacrifice in order to obtain that, right? Because without a level of sacrifice, the goal is insufficient to like truly dedicate and work towards. So like, hey, so we want to go to semifinals. Okay, here are like 3 things that are going to happen. You need to block out 3 hours a day to train. You need to block out 9 hours a night to sleep. And I need you to track every single thing that you eat. And it's like, if that athlete has never, ever slept 9 hours a night in their entire life, or has never tracked their food, or has never done more than like a 1 hour affiliate class, we now know that like, okay, that's either an overwhelming, it's either not the correct goal or the expectation, or we then need to kind of break that further into its component parts and kind of apply maybe the maturity meter. It's like, okay, well, we're going to block out, I need you to train, you take your affiliate class, great, and then I need 2 days a week where we're doing some extra training, and then it's eventually a 3rd day a week. And hey, I need you to track your macros 1 day per week, and then we can build incrementally on that, but outlining kind of here's the big goal. Well, within that goal, there are a whole bunch of bullet points that need to be hit in order to obtain that goal. Having the conversation of, is it reasonable for you to try to reach for these, like to check these things off? And 2, do you even want to, right? We have this conversation all the time. It's like, I want to be a CrossFit Games athlete. It's like, no, what you want is to walk out onto the field or into the stadium alongside a whole bunch of other fit athletes with people cheering your name and you got a cool CrossFit Games jersey on your shirt. Like, that's what you want. What you don't want is to do the fucking hundreds and hundreds of hours in order to realize that goal for like 60 seconds and then go get your ass whooped in an event at the CrossFit Games. It's like there's a very big difference between, kind of the picture that you have in your head of the goal and what it takes to actually get there.
And that's our segue to dedication, right? Like
Yeah.
The other hunterism that I remember from our last episode is go stand in front of the mirror by yourself and say, I want to be a CrossFit Games athlete. And then you spin 360 degrees and you
Yeah.
list out the things that it takes to get there, and you answer whether you're willing to do them or not, because that's what that means. And really what we're looking for your dedication to match your expectations. That's all it is. So everyone listening to this podcast is like, I want to be this body fat percentage. I want a 400-pound back squat. It'd be really cool if I could sign up for a 5K and not come in last. I want to make it to quarterfinals. I want to win the CrossFit. Whatever it is, we need those. We need the maturity, the patience, the expectations to match the level of dedication. It's almost kind of as simple as that, right? Like we're talking through, and we will in the rest of the episode, what it means to be dedicated. But if you're listening, you like some part of you knows better and knows whether you are above or below that line based on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. And I mean, to like, it's kind of intentional or not, these tie in nicely, like the dedication. So we have, let's say that you do have a whole lot of these kind of components checked off and are like, hey, so far we're all green lights here. It's like, does your life allow for this to happen? So for me personally, like right now, it's like I would love to be a scratch golfer. I have the maturity. I can coach myself to a certain extent. I may not have the resources to pay a coach, but I'll get a lesson from time to time. I'm willing to practice. I want to practice. I enjoy all of this. I understand this is a slow process, but I only have 2 days a week to legitimately dedicate to playing golf. And it's like, man, you can have all of those things, but if life doesn't allow for that to happen, like, hey, if you can't go out and chip and putt for like at least 45 minutes to an hour a day for the next year, and then in the winter go in and hit golf balls into a plastic screen and film yourself, it's like having all of those things, but not literally, figuratively having the time and the lifestyle, the support structure, whatever it is, to actually go into those. Like, it's going to be, that might just turn it into a longer time horizon, right? It's like, I've got the right attitude. I've got all of the dedication, and the expectations are right. Maybe I need to adjust the time horizon. That's a different conversation. But what it comes down to is like, can you actually, there's lots of people listening who would love to be in a CrossFit gym for 3, 4, 5 hours a day exercising. Is that actually practically reasonable for you? Like maybe for some of you, but maybe not. And then like that final kind of like thing is wildly important to like literally just the logistics of all of it.
And I think the parallel that maybe more people will understand here is, let's say you made that goal and you were making enough money to have that goal and you made the time for it, and your significant other was pissed off at you every single Saturday and Sunday that you spent on the golf course. Even if you still do it, that not having that system around you is going to take a major shot at it. It's not just that you're like, you know what, screw you, I'm going to go golf or CrossFit. It's not just that. It's the turmoil and the gas tank being sapped. And I hope she doesn't mind, and maybe I'll ask and take this out. But just an amazing example of this, and something that I'm super pumped about, is McKenna is going part-time at her job to train more. And this was
nice.
This was brought on by the support of her now husband, Wyatt, fellow Misfit.
Great.
And like really like pushed for it. Because again, like we talked about it in relation to me moving or you buying the gym. A lot of people don't feel like they have permission to make big changes in their life because it's just too much. And maybe they grew up in a more conservative family, and it's, the like clock in, clock out, and you march to the beat, and you get in your car and you drive home and you just do what you're supposed to do, what society has decided that you should do. And, I don't know how much of her like thought that this was like a long-term dream, but just knowing that the person that is there with her daily is not only supportive of it, but like pushed for it and championed the concept is the ultimate representation of what we're talking about with that support system. And I want to be very clear, and I'll just use this as an example because there's a million other examples. There's friends, parents, significant others, all these different things. But it's not just on them. If you don't tell them how important this is to you, or what you're trying to accomplish, or do your part on, in some other place in the relationship, then it's also on you. You have to set those expectations. You have to put it out there. You're not asking for permission not to show up at all in a personal relationship. That's, we're back to the maturity meter here. So it's on both sides, right? And again, I think it wraps up this whole side of the conversation of like, as we work our way down this list, we have to be able to check the boxes in relation to what we're trying to accomplish, and then what is needed within each category to actually make them happen. And the lifestyle of a CrossFit Games athlete or semifinals athlete, or honestly, even a quarterfinals athlete, has some very specific demands, and you're not going to be able to work your way around them over a long time horizon. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I think that the support structure, again, pretty much everything up to this point are things that, you are either analyzing on your own as an athlete, or maybe you have a coach helping you. But at the end of the day, it is very much kind of, it's much easier to control the things that you can control, right? But there are second and third order effects. Like you said, it's like, okay, well, I can't, if I can train 4 hours a day, and a couple of those hours are going to be from 6 to 8 p.m. What does that do to, the home life? What does that do to the boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever situation happens to be? And does that start to create friction, resentment, whatever? And all of a sudden, it doesn't really matter if you've got everything in line, but if you're not getting the support that you need, and this is the tough thing about this, because this is kind of especially like the bigger the goal, right? The larger the sacrifice across the board. That it's just kind of how it works, and not feeling like you have that support.
I feel like that's one part of it that's cool. It's complex in scope, but it's very simple. Like the life of talk about punching the clock. Like the life of a CrossFit Games athlete is you just need, you need to buy in, and your life needs to support this concept. But at that point, it's like one of the conversations I have to have with people once they have more free time is like, we're going to go harder and recover harder. I'm not going to give you a mountain of volume. It doesn't make any sense. Like you're going to notice how much fitter you can get with, 9 hours of sleep, and like not feeling guilty when you relax between sessions and things like that.
All right, Misfits, we got to pause for just a second here. I don't know if there's a name for jet lag related to driving across the country and moving, but there should be. I forgot 2 important things at the beginning of the episode. Number 1 is early bird pricing for camp at CrossFit Roots in Boulder, Colorado, January 30th through February 1st, ends in 5 days. You guys can still sign up after that, but you're going to have to pay $50. We do the early bird pricing to try to get a really good idea of how many people are going to be at camp, so we can have the appropriate staff ready. No matter what, going to be a fantastic staff, but head to the link in bio on Instagram. Get signed up for camp. It's going to be absolutely incredible. It's a beautiful place to be, especially in the winter, Boulder, Colorado. And yeah, go get signed up. Second, rain or shine collection. You guys have been asking. We've been teasing it a little bit. Finally came up with a design that I really like. Feels appropriate with it being a very black and white topic and black and white design to have it be on Black Friday. So sharpentheaxeco.com, everything on the site that is not new is going to be 30% off, which really means 40% off if you know your athlete codes. But we always want to make sure that we're throwing our ambassadors a bone. So if you know your athlete codes, your favorite athletes, if you don't know them, ask them on Instagram. But it's going to be 30% off, and then you're going to be able to add the code to add 10% off. And we're going to discount the Rain or Shine collection as well. The Rain or Shine collection is a pre-sale for a very specific reason. Number 1, the amount of messages that we get, especially during a sale, that are like, what the frick? You don't have my size. You guys never have my size. You guys never have small, medium, large, extra large. Or I don't want a hoodie. I want a crew. I don't want a long sleeve. I want a t-shirt. I don't want a t-shirt. I want a crop. So we can do all of those things. And we've got some sweatpants in there as well. So you can kind of get the full set heading into winter with the sweatpants and the sweatshirts. I'm really excited about the collection. I think the design is sick. And I also think that ethos and that concept, especially this time of year, is incredibly important. So if you want to support Misfit Athletics, support the podcast, that is another way. Sharpentheaxeco.com. We will run the pre-sale from Black Friday through Cyber Monday. And you can stock up on t-shirts and socks and things of that nature for 40% off if you know your athlete codes. All right, back to the episode.
All right, we are going to jump to experience next. Our sort of subheadings under experience are education, history, and perspective. Education is happening in real time. If you're listening to this, then you are bought into the concept, especially if you're an hour and 5 minutes into this episode. You are bought into the concept of, again, continuing education and understanding what you're doing. And honestly, we'll use probably the other bullet points to explain it potentially a little bit better, but you are educating yourself every single day in that gym. And if you have that athlete amnesia, affiliate coaches, you guys know what I'm talking about. You teach somebody a thruster for 45 minutes in open gym, and then the next day they say they don't know what that movement is. And it's like, this is crazy. And then, an athlete that has, you talk about it all the time, a mountain of data daily, a gigantic mountain of data points that can make you better, that can make you smarter, that can give you a better athlete IQ. And if you don't pay attention to them and take notes and think about how you would do something differently the next time, I don't know, there's no way to assign a percentage to it, but 30% of your, I think about it as taking 30% too much of a supplement and then peeing 45 cents into the toilet every time you do. That training is only partially as effective, again, as the other athlete who did the same thing as you and then kind of thought about it while they were cooling down and took some notes.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you can for one thing, IQ, it broadly speaking, is your ability to recognize patterns and process information faster than somebody else, right? That's kind of how that is developed, how it's tested. There's some unfortunate statistics on the fact that it's really difficult to improve from a broad human IQ perspective, but from when we're talking about a very niche thing like athlete IQ in the sport of CrossFit, that's much easier to develop compared to broad fluid IQ. Understanding that all what you just said, taking the information that you have, your experience, the information that you've gleaned over however long it is, and also trying to connect. There's a whole lot of and especially as an affiliate coach, it's there's a handful of movement patterns and positions that athletes need to be good at. There's a million movements in CrossFit, but there's a handful of just general patterns, movements, positions that you need to be able to get in. And if you can get into those positions, then you can do essentially any of the movements that we have. You just need to maybe be taught how to do them most efficiently. But the recognition of how things kind of connect and intertwine, whether that's literal, like I was kind of alluding to, positions, all the way to well, how fast do my 800s need to be in this 3-round Metcon in order to, one, be competitive, two, I'm not going to run at a pace that I'm physically incapable of running, but what is that pace? And then being able to tie your experience into well, I tend to know that in this sort of setting, I can push a little bit harder than maybe I give myself credit for. So I need to kind of bake that into the cake, so to speak. So all this comes down to is just the more history you have, the more kind of perspective that you have, going to the other bullet points, and just what you kind of consume, whether it's content, like you alluded to, books, podcasts, whatever it is. It's less important that we're perfecting these very specific niche components of your education, and more just are we actually interested in learning and getting better? And then are we actually paying attention to how a lot of these concepts connect and intertwine? Because when you can start to pick up on those patterns, all of a sudden, you can outcycle your opponent, your peer, whatever, when it comes to making decisions, and you apply that to a very, very specific level. It's okay, I'm going head to head with this person in an open workout. If I can recognize the pattern, make a decision, and execute and cycle that loop faster, I'm going to win. In the military, it's a super well known, it's called the OODA loop. OODA. Military loves their acronyms. Can't remember, I think it was an Air Force colonel who who developed it, but it's observe, orient, decide, act. And it is just like it pretty intuitive, right? And it's just a constant feedback loop. Okay, like what's going on? I need to orient myself to the right decision, make a decision, and then execute that decision. And this is a constant iterative process. And you can think about that in a workout, right? It's like, okay, I did that first round too fast. I need to make an adjustment, and then I need to execute. And you are constant. And then it's like, oh, fuck, out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody, they're not slowing down. Okay, no, I can't slow down. Observe, orient, and that OODA loop is just constantly being like refined and executed on. And the better that you can get at recognizing, observing, orienting, deciding, and acting, that's how you win. In the actual military application, this was in reference to like dogfighting fighter jets. Like if you can outcycle the enemy as far as like that OODA loop, you win.
Yeah.
If you don't, you lose.
Sure. Yeah. Stakes are pretty high there.
Yeah. A little different.
The thing that's popping into my head right now, and if we got any nerds listening to this, which we definitely do, Farnham Street has a mental models. I think they have a volume 1 and 2 that you can buy on Amazon. And when you have a mental model for training, we're going back to the maturity meter because you have, just sort of the loop type thing that you're talking about, Hunter. We have a way to audit what we're doing and get the information out of it. And then that linear progression of remembering to do it and making it an actual habit on a regular basis. It's like, I really want to know if you tweaked your warm up, did you feel better in that workout? I really want to know, like, did you finally get over the fact of not going unbroken and we did 3 sets of chest to bar and now your score got way better? So many pieces that we could add to it, and we have to look at it through a certain type of lens. And if you have a mental model for the way that you audit, then you can continue to do so over time, and it can be incredibly helpful. And I wanted to bring something up to explain my concept here. So let's stop this. Technology, window.
You have to remind me before the end of the podcast. I have to shout out Tony for something hilarious in this past week that a lot of listeners will appreciate.
So this right here is maybe a little bit of an explanation of my brain. I did this at camp, and it's funny because it was to prove a point, and people took pictures of it and tried to study it, and that was not where we were going. One feature of ADD is you re-arrive at concepts in a completely different place, partially because you don't remember the specific thing that you said about one of the bullet points. And I find that to be fun. Like when I'm looking at these things, I want to know, and not to bury the lead, the bottom bullet point here is perspective. So I'm arriving as a coach back at this conversation with a different perspective. And what you're seeing if you're watching on YouTube is all of the things that we said as a group of 3 coaches at the time during a podcast about athlete IQ. And it's fun to, again, have education and history. I can go back and look at this and be like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I remember that concept, that's really cool. And then I can also arrive at a completely different conclusion today to sort of think through things. And it came to mind because I was like, history, like what am I gonna say about that? And it's, for my brain, it's not typically what have we said before. It's like, how am I thinking about it at 10:16 a.m. or 20? And just the idea of your personal history, the history of your competitors, the history of the sport. Like when I think history, I think of all the crazy spreadsheets that I have of every single movement that's ever been programmed by Dave Castro. I think about all the experiences that I've had as a coach at literally every level, like beginner's class, personal training, someone's having a tough time standing up off a box, top 10 at the CrossFit Games, podium at the CrossFit Games, all that stuff. And all of that history and all of that knowledge and all that education, it's again, just another thing that like epitomizes athlete IQ. Like I could be better without training, like training aside, basically. Like I could get significantly better if I really thought through the history of the sport and like, oh, I remember when they did the cut rope climbs. I got to find that video of Katrin and Brent wrapping their crotch around the rope, for their second pull or something like that. And just these little things of like, for me, I taught movement based on the best athletes in the sport. I would download their videos, I would rip their YouTube videos, and I would go frame by frame and be like, oh, wow. Like I remember a Ben Smith video where you could not tell where his extension and turnover stopped and ended on the rings. And that was where I came up with the whole like fluidity of movement idea that we've talked about a bunch. So history, student
Analyze
of the
his
game,
handstand
all
walking?
of this. Yeah, there was this scrawny kid who just flew past him at the Mid-Atlantic Regional. I don't know who it was, but it was majestic.
Back in 2014, I know you ripped that video down, analysis for sure.
So what comes to mind for you when thinking about history as sort of separate from education?
Ooh, that little caveat at the end there is really fucks me up here.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, and I have all the qualms with semantics.
Yeah, history. Yeah, I mean, I think one, as an athlete, you can look back at like, you have to study history in order to have an idea of where the sport might be headed. We've seen that basically every year since 2010, say. I mean, even before that, but like when people really started paying attention a little bit more to competitive CrossFit, just the evolution of going from like holy crap, there's a 405 deadlift at the CrossFit Games, to like, yeah, that's 3 rounds of 7 405 deadlifts, an air run, and a shitload of GHD sit-ups. Like, I hope your midline is prepared for this. And so just having like an that's more about like from a preparation perspective, as far as like, hey, if you're not paying attention to what we've done in the past, here maybe a more applicable example is like, are you paying attention to what CrossFit.com posts? Something super simple, because how many times have those I saw a workout, it was somewhat of a sidebar, but it was like, where was it? It was like, I think it was 10-8-6-4-2 hour snatch, overhead squat, bar muscle up at like 185. It was like, it was a fucking gnarly, and I was like, that's a .com workout. And like every once in a while they'll drop one where it's like, I have to scale that. Like 155's that weight for me. 155, 165, something like that's the weight for me. But I'm like, that is a semifinal workout next year, and I'll call that now. I'll say like, yeah, I would not be surprised if we saw something similar, because that just reeked of a terrible, like, I would love to see games athletes throw down and see how fast they could do it. But the point is,
last chance qualifier heavy overhead squat muscle up was brutal. Like, it was one of those workouts that on paper looked like however many minutes based on doing just the like WOD timing math, and it's like 5 minutes longer because you gotta wait.
Yeah, the muscle fatigue element for sure. But yeah, and I think like learning to pay attention to, and by we I mean you mostly, you do that analysis of like, hey, this is what we can expect to see at the CrossFit Games, because this is what we've seen at the CrossFit Games for the last 10 years. It's like, you're getting this event on this day, you got these stimuli that are probably going to get hit. You're going to see 1, 2, or 3 weird things. But as an athlete, like, just paying attention to those sorts of things over a long enough period of time, and you start to pick up on the patterns. And then there's also again, going back to kind of like the literal IQ element. It's like, okay, what are they not going to program? Or what is like, yeah, they're more than likely not putting these couple things together because, well, like, how the fuck would they possibly do this logistically? You can like get really into the weeds thinking about like what they are likely to do, what they have done in the past, and what they might do in the future based on, again, historical precedents and just like using your brain.
Last bullet point here is perspective. And it's a very sort of never-ending developing thing from all fronts, from the coach, from the athlete. And I just think it's about, like, part of me thinks it's about allowing yourself to change and develop. Like, because there's sometimes maybe in politics or like your general opinions in life where internally your opinion changes, and then you like have fear that someone will like be like, you changed your mind, or you've changed, and you want to be like, oh, thanks. Like, that's a compliment.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, your perspective needs to continue to develop and change, and what angle you're looking at things from. And you can look at it again from multiple angles, and we're doing that on this podcast, interchanging between the high level athlete, the affiliate athlete, the coach, the athlete, all of those different things. And you're just you're going to make your way around this circle, and you're going to get your mind in a better spot, and you're going to get your body in a better spot, and you're really going to start to pay attention to your mountain of data and the mountain of data from the sport itself, and your perspective will change, or at least it should, for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that the example there of like, maybe more broad general thoughts on, politics, great example, given how volatile that is right now. It's like, is something that you believed previously and historically something that you still believe because you still believe it? Or is it just kind of like attached to your persona that because that's who you were at a certain point, other people have like kind of assigned that to you from a social perspective, and now that's just kind of like part of your personality, not necessarily because it's even true anymore. It's just because at one time it was, and then other people kind of latched on to that, and then they associate like Hunter's the guy who never likes to go out because he would rather stay in. It's like that can change, and like you have to be willing to change that perspective. From like a more, maybe a better example for the athlete is like, well, I've always, go back to the rope climb thing, I've always climbed rope this way, that's just how I do it, and like I've never really considered an outside perspective. And then the outside perspective being like, well, have you considered that, like, here's 3 or 4 reasons why you might not want to do things the way that you have historically done them in the past? Like, and then what are the, like, well, if your goal is to improve your placement in quarterfinals and you know that this is a movement that you need to get better at, consider the alternative that, well, what you've been doing has proven to not be working, right? Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here asking for help. So is there the possibility that your preconceived notions are actually incorrect, or they're ill-founded, or someone gave you advice one time that was applicable then, but it's no longer applicable now, and you just haven't changed your perspective in order to like accommodate new information, better information, a different way of approaching things? And I think that, like, honestly, if you were to draw a line, like, you could fucking bring that line and arrow all the way back to maturity at the very beginning. Yeah. It's like, are you mature enough to recognize that, like, wow, I'm holding on to this persona, this thing that that's just kind of been latched onto me for so long, and like, it's actually no longer serving me, and I need to make this change. And, it's not an immediate thing, and it's going to take time, but like, that's the maturity meter, right? It's like, that's the
100%
biggest application of the maturity meter right there.
Since we're creating this list, things that would make Drew perish, towing the party line, any party, the CrossFit party, the real political parties, like the idea that you can't have your own individual thoughts and someone else would be like, actually, that's not what we think at the moment. I'll just wither away.
Motherfucker, who's we?
I'll be hanging from a tree, the leaf will die, and I will just blow into the wind. I won't exist anymore. So I think that wraps up the experience part pretty well. And we're going to finish with body. And we're an hour and 23 minutes into this podcast, so we'll try to wrap it up. But this is the most cut and dry part of this. And I have it split out into GPP, skill, and recovery. And I, again, all the way back to the beginning of the podcast, believe that you need to understand and buy into the full power of general physical preparedness if you want to excel. Because there are different times of year, especially as a competitor, honestly, or even just like we're about to do basically Texas method in the affiliate. And, or at least, a linear progression 5x5 back squat in the next phase. And that's going to make such a profound effect on an athlete's physiology, even though you're not going to do a Metcon that day. Like, I remember the old Rob Wolf thing, once you get your CrossFit total over 1,000 pounds, Fran is like a reasonable workout and you can really hammer it. And, thinking history, education perspective, the things that shape you as a coach, especially, and as an athlete, is being like, wow, that's crazy. You would assume that I just need to be doing burpees and wall balls all day if I want to get better at this. And it's like, well, like, if it's a lot easier on your muscles to cycle that barbell, then your heart rate's going to be lower. You're going to flush waste faster, all of those things. And I really just believe that, like, it's one of the reasons why we have naming conventions for what we do. We have the, Maffetone or Zone 2 sessions. We have, build for our anaerobic stuff. We have aerobic. We have power output. We have muscle overload and cardio and all of these different things. And I want people to see what happens to everything else when you get better at one thing or two things or three things. And if you don't believe, if you don't trust the process, if you don't believe in your training, you are once again taking some percentage of what you're doing and throwing it in the toilet. Because if you're not really along for the ride, the intensity, the focus, all those things probably aren't going to be there in the same way as they would if you're like just McKenna's another really good example. The stuff that she bought into and worked on while she had the, recovering from ankle surgery. She just trusted the process. And even though it was frustrating at times to continue to be doing the same things, phase 0 was like, they were a lot of her best numbers she's ever had and things she hadn't done in, I don't even know, 6 months, longer, 8 months.
Yeah. I mean, we saw that with like Caroline during COVID, right? Like just stimulus being king and like, sorry, we didn't have access to a barbell or rings for very long, but man, we got real good on machines and running, and lo and behold, the CrossFit Games athlete pops out the other side.
Yep.
Yeah, I think from the on the body perspective, I see like the GPP and the recovery bullet points as being kind of like the physical when we think about CrossFit, like breaking up almost general skills into the organic versus the kind of like neurological, meaning like, hey, I'm going to actually, the GPP and the recovery, this is me just physical exertion, like properly programmed is going to result in progress. And note that it doesn't say like, it's not bitch work and recovery. It's not 5x5 back squat and recovery. It's not squat snatch recovery. It's not muscle ups and recovery. It's general physical preparedness, right? And recovering from general physical preparedness. It's train, do the CrossFit, like kind of like the GPP style of programming that we do, recover from it, and you're going to get better. The skill element to me falls in, that's the neurological adaptation of like, okay, I need to, outside of intensity, I need to figure out how the hell to appropriately lock my feet into the rope to climb. I need to figure out this, I'm a games athlete. I've got to spend a little bit of time with this stupid fucking jump rope to try to get a triple under or two because it might pop up. There's a whole spectrum of what that means based on your ability level, but I just see those two things, that whole section of the triangle being broken out into like the organic adaptation. I just train and I get better at it versus like I need to spend a little bit of brain power practicing to try to learn something new or make some sort of muscle memory connections here so that I can actually utilize this thing now for my GP.
Yeah, and skill is a funny one, and it's important to be here because you just, again, how much of it is you educating yourself versus your coach helping you is probably a separate conversation for a separate day, but really just understanding how to get better at something and buying into the idea that you will get better if you have maturity and patience.
Maturity meter, there it goes.
Exactly.
Yep.
If we get back to that same conversation and how, there's a GPP element, GPP-esque element to this whole thing, right? You get a little bit better at this and then it shoots over here and it shoots over here. And again, if you're on YouTube, that was the point of what this is on the screen, aside from different coaches' perspectives and how it sort of adds up. It's also, like this turns into this. Like we got to work on all of it. We got to keep circling back. We're going left, we're going right, we're going up, we're going down. The triangle's a pyramid, it's a hypotenuse. But the skill element of not only do I know how to, or someone is coaching me in the right way to get better, but the belief that I can and will get better is so important. That level of buy-in, not having the perspective and the education and the dedication and the maturity and the patience can make these things so frustrating because, again, depending on who you are, you probably have like a niche in the sport. It's what got you in, you whooped everyone's ass on the rower, or you could do muscle ups to start off, or, super strong, that kind of thing. And you have these expectations for like, well, I'm the barbell guy. And then they announce a particular stimulus that puts you in the grave and the sky is falling. The ups, the downs are huge because you don't understand that it's just a new thing. It's a new stimulus to figure out. It's a new skill to figure out. If it's repeated Olympic lifts over and over at a moderate weight, am I just gassed because I'm hitting quadruple extension and ripping the bar to my eyeballs when I don't need to? Am I moving my feet too much? When in CrossFit, sometimes you gotta, plant those babies and let her rip, that kind of thing. That belief system, no matter what, I think is so imperative.
Concur.
All right. Last but not least, could have started here, but we're going to end here. Call it the other 23 hours because it's most applicable to people, even the people listening to this podcast, maybe it's 22, but we're working hard for an hour to an hour and a half a day, most days. So if this is an important thing to you and 1/24 of your behaviors are dedicated to it, might be a problem, right?
Yep.
Low-hanging fruit will disappear at an alarming rate in this sport as the history gets deeper and deeper, and you understanding how to recover, back to the, talk about it all the time, the super compensation model. Like if you just keep driving yourself into the ground, you don't pop back up above the baseline.
Yeah.
And man, we're not going to do this totally separate episode of what the specifics in recovery are, but a lot of it is like, talked about it in I think the last episode or the one before, that YouTube comment about Chris Bumstead and someone being like, I think I know why he's so good. He's so chill. Like he seems like the kind of guy who could go in and do, 10 by 10 bench with 150 pound dumbbells and then be asleep like 30 minutes later on his couch. And if you watch his YouTube, you can tell that dude spends a lot of time hanging out, right? It's like eating 12 trillion calories a day and sitting around outside of his ridiculous training regimen. So like the work hard, play hard thing is one of the cheesiest monikers in the history of the world. So we got to come up with something better than that. But again, like training your ass off and then turning that off is often the side of whatever it takes that people aren't all that interested in. They got into this because they're type A, because they're willing to hurt, because they're willing to push. And then they go bring that to the other parts of their life and that gas tank gets sapped and that super compensation is not super.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We spent an hour and a half talking about all of the things, and then there is an element where like it needs to be none of the things.
House of cards, right?
Yeah, like there needs to be, if you're always on, you're never on, right? You have to be able to turn it on and off, and there's a skill component to that for sure. It's like, hey, you're not in the gym anymore right now. Let's think or talk about something that isn't competitive CrossFit. And I don't want to shy people away from like, if you have a really lofty goal, that there may be less of that, but like if you're an affiliate athlete who's in here an hour a day to be fit and healthy, but all we talk about is thrusters and pull-ups, it's like we might have a prioritization kind of issue here as far as like what does our goals align with our actions. But yeah, I think just you got to turn it off. Got to turn it off every once in a while. If you want to be able to turn it on, you have to be able to turn it off.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So final thoughts. Okay, you go first. I'm developing one.
That's fine. This isn't as relevant of a final thought, but I teased this. But man, okay. So where was it? Week 3, day 5, optional piece, 3 rounds for time, 1,000 meter row, 100-foot double dumbbell front rack carry, 70s, 20 GHD sit-ups, 100 feet, 100-foot double dumbbell front rack carry. I receive text message. You think that's yuck. I receive text message, 200 feet per round. I'm like, look, what's he talking about? I think I know what this piece is. Yep, that's 200 feet per round. 2 rounds took me 26 minutes. And I'm like, okay, like let's worst case, like say 4.5 minute 1K row
metric situation going on here.
Yeah, we got 4 minutes. Like that's like a minute, 5, 6, 7. Let's say like absolute worst case scenario, that round takes you 8 minutes, and it's a 16-minute 2 round, which is kind of fucking slow. And then it dawned on me, hey Tony, did you carry the dumbbells or did you do something else with them? I lunged.
How many feet of lunges did he do?
Oh yeah. Hold on. I'll stand by for that calculus. I was like, Tony, I felt terrible because I was like, I should have specified in the notes. I was like, this is a carry, not a lunge. We're talking walk with the dumbbells on your shoulders. It's a shitty midline workout. And he was like,
Austin, it would have been in caps lock, and I would have sent it to Caroline to tell him.
And like so I take some responsibility for that. But then I was like, are we in the fucking danger zone here? I'm like,
Yes.
100 feet. Okay, so
You're in
that's
the rhabdo zone,
that's
especially
8
for
by
quads, I'm
25 foot. That's 8 25-foot lengths in one round. So that's 16 25-foot lengths. 16 times, let's respectfully say Tony's 5'5" frame yields him 10 lunges.
I was going to say at least
per
9.
25 feet. We're looking at around 160 old lungy boys with the 70s in the front rack.
That is
and I was just like,
dude.
I told him, I was like,
dude,
dude,
we talked about SEAL Fit and you programmed.
I programmed SEAL Fit. Yeah. I did send him the seal of approval though. I said, I was like, I'm so proud of you for absolutely hazing yourself.
Wow.
And I was like, you should really spend some time like mashing. I don't know if
in the waiting room in a hospital just in case.
Yeah, like I was like, I don't know if a cold plunge is like gonna like if that's feasible for you to get to, but like maybe dunk those stems or something like that. And he was like, it's like actually like my legs don't feel that bad. I was limited a bit on capacity at that weight. I'm like, yeah. I was like, I'm curious to see how this statement ages. I did not. I was somewhat unpleasantly surprised that I didn't receive a message from him that said, I'm fucking dead. Maybe it was the 2 doubles and a milkshake from Shake Shack.
Okay.
Yeah, shout out Tony for just absolutely fucking hazing yourself in what was already like a long muscle overload stimulus workout. So like, what's like, it was still long and muscle overloady, and he cut out the 3rd round. He did the bless his heart. He did do the 3rd round of rowing, but he omitted the additional 200 feet of front rack lunging, which I'm totally fine with. So he not only hazed the shit out of himself, but he got the 3rd round of rowing in, which of the movements was the one that I would have loved for him to actually get in. And yeah, just a friendly reminder to everybody to just take a peek at the old words on the page. But Tony, I love you, man. That's just a fucking goddamn warfighter.
Tony, that is incredible.
His glutes grew 3 sizes that day. As soon as he said it, as soon as he texted it, I was like, I think I knew what he's talking about, and I think I know what just happened. And
because during COVID, I had a thing that I would do with 40-pound dumbbells. I would walk up my driveway with them over my head until I was close to failure. And then I would go to farmer's carry until I was close to failure. And then I would go to front rack, close to failure. And like, it was such a good stimulus. Like, I gave it to some of my more.
Is that the order? Is that the right order?
That was the right order for me personally, but hardest to easiest is the direction I was going, kind of like drop sets basically.
Yeah.
And the front rack
and you think the front rack was easier than the farmers?
Yeah, it was for me. We won't talk about why publicly.
I understand.
But part of the reason why I like the stimulus so much is because in this position here, I have really good mobility. Like I can feel very stacked and keep my T-spine where I need to. But when your shoulders and your forearms don't work, that position is like gnarly. And I definitely did mix up the other ones. And I just felt like the other order, like especially going from front rack down to farmer's carry, like I couldn't walk for as long. So maybe that's more of what it was, is like, I felt like that order is where I could walk the furthest.
We made it so far in the podcast before the interwebs.
It says
Carter.
Can you still hear me?
Carter's in there playing Geek Squad. I know he's messing around with the internet.
What?
Alrighty, Misfits. I think we're experiencing some technical difficulties. Drew's Colorado internet is not cooperating, likely because Carter has unplugged the Wi-Fi.
All right, gang, I am back after some technical difficulties. I just wanted to wrap up my final thoughts on this topic. A concept that I was thinking about throughout the episode that I think is really powerful and kind of leans into the 50-50 agreement that we talk about with the coaches and athletes. And it's just this idea of if you're going to coach or be an athlete, you have to be willing to go as far as the other person. And I like to let the athlete set that standard and then work with them to improve it. But I'm always going to match or exceed what the athlete is doing. But if each side takes responsibility in a really huge way, it marries together into something extremely powerful. So for my coaches out there, you need to take the responsibility of
developing the athlete IQ from the coach's side, teaching them how to do it, and working under the assumption that you are, almost solely responsible for the success of this athlete in a way. And I'll explain what that means in a second, but the athlete needs to feel the same way. They need to do as much as they can to help themselves, because then their level of understanding and their ability to absorb the lessons from the coach will be significantly higher. So if the athlete is all in on all the concepts that we talked about today, and the coach is as well, and they're not kind of doing the Spider-Man meme of pointing at each other and saying like, well, you're not doing this, or the other side isn't doing that, then you can really accept responsibility for your side of things. And if both people rise to these really high levels, then things are going to go extremely well. So this is one of my favorite topics. This is one of my favorite episodes to do every year. We're over an hour and a half here, but I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen all the way through, and would love some discourse. Email me, coach@misfitathletics.com, jump into the Telegram group, talk about, sort of what your thoughts are on this topic. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Thank you to Gorilla Mind for sponsoring this episode. You can go to gorillamind.com/misfit or use the code misfit at checkout to save 10%. Their Black Friday sale is still running and will run through the week, 20, 30, 40% off. And then you stack the code and that becomes 30, 40, or 50. Really good trial period for us, you guys, to try out our new sponsor and support the podcast. If you're looking for affiliate programming, you can head to teammisfit.com, click on the sign up now button. You get a 2-week free trial at StreamFit, SugarWatt, or Push Press. Or if you'd like the PDF version, shoot me an email, coach@misfitathletics.com, and I will get that over to you. All your individual programming needs are link in bio on our Instagram. Get signed up on Fitter or Strivey. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye. Thanks for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Don't forget, I don't remember exactly what the ad read is, but you can head to gorillamind.com, use the code word Misfit, and you'll save somewhere between 20 and 40%, which is pretty fucking cool. So, yeah, thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys later.
Biggest bunch of misfits I ever set eyes on.